So hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 12th, 2025 regular council meeting for the Village of Lytton. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin the proceedings. Just to let you know, we are all being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If anyone is looking for a video recording of this meeting or a past meeting, you can go to the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. I want to begin by respectfully recognizing that we're meeting here this evening on the unceded traditional ancestral territory of the Ntlaka'an people. In accordance with our council procedure bylaw, we have Kathy Walters here this evening in the capacity of Deputy Corporate Officer. All right, so we do need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Move Lightfoot.
Thank you. Second. Cross. Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. We move on to adoption of minutes from previous meetings, and we need a motion regarding the last regular council meeting of July 22nd.
Also move.
Thank you. Councillor McCann, seconder. Cross. Thank you. Were there any errors or omissions? No. All those in favor? Carried. And we also have a minutes from a special meeting we held on August the 1st that we need to adopt those minutes. So a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Seconder. Lightfoot. Were there any errors or omissions there? No. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so that brings us right down to item number 6, which is public comment. And I'm going to turn it back over to our corporate officer, Lisa Storoshenko.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen, and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name. You'll be asked to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. And speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, say your address, and the agenda item number that you're speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I don't see anyone, so I'll call for a second time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I'm not seeing anyone online that wishes to speak, Your Worship. Is there anyone at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
We have no one in the hall this evening.
Wonderful. Send back to you.
All right. So we move on to item number 7, which is staff reports, and we begin with CIO Burkett regarding the village staffing update.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Good evening, everyone. This first report is just for council's information, and I'm just going to review the staffing at the Village of Lytton. I've had a number of inquiries from council members and community members, and I think you may remember at the last meeting we had a very brief discussion about staffing, and so I thought it might be appropriate just to do a review of the positions that we have and talk a little bit about some of the funding sources and whatnot. So this first slide is just the overview of the organizational chart, they would call this. We'll come back to this at the end, and I'll talk a little bit more about all the different colors and what they mean. Excuse me, but just to start off, this is sort of the basic structure, and so we have a number of different areas. At the Village of Lytton, we have the accounting department. We have a corporate officer, which is, of course, it's Lisa. We have a communications advisor, who's Melissa DeRue. We have our kind of public works and utilities and all that type of activity. We have the development services department, and then we have emergency management as well. We also have a couple of positions that support me on a couple of different things, being a construction advisor on the large construction projects, utilities advisor on some of the sewer and water decisions. That's a little bit less now that we have a municipal engineer in place. And we have the corporate recovery lead, who's currently on leave, but that's Shannon's story. So I'm just going to go through some of these departments and explain a little bit about what specific people do. And then, like I said, we'll come back to this overall overview chart and talk a little bit about the different color coding. So Lisa, the next slide, please. So this is an outline of the Development Services Department, and the boxes that are in purple represent functions, not positions. And then the boxes in blue represent actual positions. So we have our Director of Development, Carolyn Lamont, who joined us in March. And she looks after kind of two main areas, and they're planning and development and economic development. So in the planning and development area, she's supported with contract staff through urban options for planning services, the TNRD for the building official, and a building inspector company, Gray Wolf. So those three organizations all support her on the planning side, and then on the economic development, she actually does that work herself. So there's nobody working with her in that area. Next slide, please. And so this is the accounting department, and so we have our manager of finance, Lisa McIntosh, and she is responsible as well for two areas. As again, the purple box is representing functions, so that would be the general ledger, which is typically our, our day-to-day accounting. And then we also have our project accounting, which relates primarily to our large construction projects and our grant funding. So working with Lisa, we have three positions on the kind of day-to-day accounting, and that's our accounting clerks, Kathy Walters, Sam Walters, and Angela Hollus. And so they have specific responsibilities for accounts payable or accounts receivable or taxes or administration, those types of things. Our goal is to cross-train everybody as much as possible. But if anybody ever needs anything from an accounting, you can either just phone the office or go to the office and they'll direct you to the right person, because it does sort of change a little bit depending on workloads and what people are doing. On the project accounting side, we have a contractor, Gloria Dario, and she focuses just on project accounting, which is on the construction side of things, is very specific how we track and report the costs of the construction projects that we then submit claims for reimbursements from the funders. So on to the next slide, Lisa, please. And then the final area that I have a detailed slide on is the what we call operations. So this is public works and utilities. It also includes capital projects support on the ground and recovery. So we have our municipal engineer, Daryl Exani. He's on with us tonight he'll be giving a water report a little bit further on in the agenda. And so, working with Daryl again, he has two functional areas. One is capital projects and recovery, and the other is utilities and public works. So, working on capital projects and recoveries is Brian Baxter. He also works on emergency management as well, but there really wasn't a way to demonstrate all of that on this chart. But Brian is primarily focused these days on finishing all of the recovery works that we have a September 30th deadline on, as well as providing on-the-ground support on the capital projects for the Village Hall, the Public Works Building, and eventually the Community Hub and new Fire Hall. So Brian has a lot of different things on his plate. On the utilities and public works side of things, we have a senior operator, Kevin Vilak, that works 1 day a week with us. Kevin comes from Merit on Wednesdays and is available to us basically 24/7 for other sewer and water issues. Working with Kevin is our lead hand, Morgan Heister, and Morgan then has two staff reporting to him, Jean MacArthur and Edmund Justice. And so Edmund has just recently joined us as a seasonal worker, and so he's working in the village on a number of different cleanup projects. And Jean is our maintenance worker. So Jean has some training on the water and sewer systems, and will continue to be trained more, and then does a lot of the general maintenance around the village. In addition to those positions, there's one up at the top of the chart called a project contract manager. So this is a position that a fellow by the name of Jim Rowe, and Jim's responsibilities are around managing the contracts on the sewer and water side. So when we're doing like the big East of Maine water project that's currently underway, so Jim is managing that contractor. We have the engineer who designed the system who comes and does periodic checks of the work as well. And that person supports Daryl in making sure that all of those projects get executed appropriately. So if we just go back to the beginning for a second, Lisa. So I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about some of basically the funding sources and the types of positions that we have. So at the Village of Lytton, we have basically two types of positions. We have staff positions and we have contractors. So all of the contractor positions have end dates on them, and most of them are aligned with the recovery funding with a December 31st, 2026 end date. The staff positions primarily are permanent staff positions, so they don't have an end date, but some of them do. So the ones that are highlighted in blue or a blue box, those would be considered kind of our permanent staff positions. And our accounting manager is a contractor with an end date. We're not going to have a permanent accounting manager, but we are going to have one permanent senior position. So at this time, we just designate that as the accounting manager. It could be the corporate officer, it could be the CAO. It's going to be one of those positions. The other distinction that is made on, so, and the other distinction, sorry, the other distinction that's made on this chart is the funding source for the positions. So we have three funding sources basically for staff positions, staff or contractors. So one of them is property taxes. That's our regular operations budget. The second is what we call surge funding for the operations budget. And this is funding that was provided to us by Municipal Affairs to allow the Village of Lytton during the recovery phase to staff up with regular typical sort of municipal positions. So for example, Lisa's position as the corporate officer, we have full-time right now. Lytton wouldn't typically have a full-time corporate officer, but this additional surge funding has allowed us to have that position full-time. And then the third source of funding are the grants. So whether it's a capital grant or whether it's a recovery grant, the different positions on our org chart are covered by those funding sources. So the blue boxes are the regular operations budget. The green boxes are funded from the surge funding. So that's my position as the CAO. That's the corporate officer. It's the utilities advisor, the capital projects, and the senior wastewater operator, and the seasonal worker. Those are all positions that the Village of Lytton wouldn't typically have at the level that they're at, or they wouldn't have the position at all. So it's a combination of the two. And then the orangey colored ones are all of the positions that are funded from grants. So some of them, like I said, some of them are emergency management's recovery funding. Some of them relate directly to capital projects. And I think that's it. Yeah, it's either recovery funding or capital projects. And then the final thing I'll say is that the people whose positions are in purple, so that's the accounting manager, communications, because I'm not sure if you can differentiate that on the screen, but for the positions that are in purple, those are contract positions. And for the positions that are in black, those are staff positions. So I'm not sure if all those distinctions make sense. So it's a lot of information. It's a lot of like, we do kind of a lot of like slice and dice and carving it up because we're always trying to make sure that number one, we meet any funding requirements for grant funds that, we've got the positions that we're supposed to have. And then the second thing is that we are recovering everything we can from the grant funds, right? So we're trying to make sure that we allocate things that way. And I'm sorry, I do have one final thing to say. All of these positions have been approved previously by council, either by way of the contract coming for an approval or the position in the annual plan and the 5-year financial plan that was presented to council.
Thank you for that, Diane. Excellent presentation. I think I need to look at it a couple of times to get it all to sink in, but you did a very good job of that. Are there any questions from council regarding the org chart or any of the other
I have
presentation?
a comment.
And Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Thank you, CAO Member Ken. I really appreciate that visual. It definitely helps me understand, obviously the dynamics within the staffing. As we go forward, I'm interested in how these are transitioning into a post 2026 ongoing, so how we're going to get that emergence, all those, purple into the green, I guess, basically.
Mhm.
So I see some challenges ahead, but I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And as you said, transitioning or how to, what eliminating looks like if that's the need.
Yeah, like the communications, right? So things like that.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Well, and I'd just like to say, just in response to Councillor Toss, I think that that's really important because I think we need to understand where we are right now, so that we can talk about some of those transitions. And so that was, kind of part of the reason I agree with you. A lot of people find it much easier to see it visually. And so let's start with us all understanding where we are, and then, we can continue that work forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now we do need a motion to receive the report for information. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor? And carried. All right, we'll move right on to item 7.2, which is the RFP for design build of a pool. And Diane Lumbercat, CAO, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. This is a report requesting approval from council to post an RFP for a design build of the pool. And what we have proposed is that the RFP includes kind of all kind of possible features that we might want to have in the pool. And then once we get a bit of a handle on, how much the pool and all the required systems are going to cost, it will allow us to make decisions about what features may or may not get included. So the RFP, I didn't include it. It's a lengthy document, and we're finalizing the details on it, but it includes all of the technical requirements around mechanical systems and health and safety requirements and that side of things. And so we've proposed that we include kind of the maximum size pool that would fit on the property, with the maximum number of features. And then, we've asked in the RFP for the features to be priced sort of, as add-ons, so that we know if we could, kind of take this one out or add that one in, how much it's going to affect the price. And so if we would like to post this on BC Bid and request proposals from local contractors, local being Interior BC.
Thank you. Let's put the motion forward. It's a two-part motion to approve the terms and to post the RFP.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle, seconder.
I'll say.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Are there any comments or questions?
Thank you too.
Councillor McCann, Lightfoot, which first? Yeah.
When I read through Diane, I couldn't, I have trouble understanding, of course. I'm always trying to understand. But I didn't see where it said that a chlorinated system is preferred over a saltwater system. I didn't see anything, I thought there was going to be research that was going to come forward, and I expected to see that, and I didn't. So now I'm kind of wondering, well, what system are we asking for? I don't even know. Was something recommended, or because
Yes.
I really would like to know what the options are and what's better or considered better, and what has a longer lifespan and so on, those kinds of questions.
And that's an excellent point, Councillor McCann. Thank you for that. And we did request that information from the pool consultant, and we did get a specific recommendation to go with a chlorination system, primarily for the longer term costs of maintenance going forward. And it was recommended that there was I wouldn't say a significant difference, but a significant difference, over time of having that type of system. When I did reach out to the members of the PAC who had expressed interest in the pool, I did include that as one of the criteria, like if there was a strong feeling one way or the other, and there wasn't any input back on that specific item.
Yeah. So basically, I know that was the concern, was was the longevity of the system and the ability to maintain it in a simplified way. I remember talking about that a long time ago with someone.
That's
So
correct.
that would be my concern there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Light.
I'm just curious, when I read the components that were being considered, climbing wall kind of jumped out at me. And
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with how that pertains to a pool. Like, are there pools that have climbing walls that are?
Yeah, it's basically installed on the side of the pool and you climb up, and if you fall off, you just fall into the water.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Having a delta.
Yeah.
It's actually quite popular, yeah.
Okay, are there any other
Good to know.
questions or comments? Councillor Toss?
Thank you. I'm just hoping that like the components won't be requirements such as the hub that we applied for the funding. Now we're required to put in a 25 by 6 lane. I've heard this answer before, but I think I want to be really clear on it because in my estimations, that's overkill for our community, but just want to be assured that that's not what we're pushing for necessarily.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's the approval for the hub includes a pool that can also be used as a fire reservoir. That's the requirement for the hub. So but it doesn't speak to size or anything like that.
It's simply the space that we have available for the maximum size.
That's right. So that would be the maximum cost, right? Is what we're trying to get. Is trying to get the up, and then from there we can make decisions.
And I have the same concern, sorry, about the portable lift, wondering if there's an option to have like a ramp going into the water, for example, that might require less maintenance. But
Yeah.
I think we're looking into, like, obviously with the chlorine system, simplicity of maintenance. So that's
Yes.
great. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Just one question about when we're talking about building the pool as like the pool, to me, the change rooms are part of the pool. Like, I'm really hoping that part of it, the washrooms and change rooms part of it, is not going to be located somewhere else, that it's considered to be a part of this unit. Like, I can't imagine having a change room for a pool that isn't right at the pool, for example. Like, am I right in assuming that is part of the required things there?
So with respect to the changing rooms and washrooms that need to go with the pool, what we're looking to do because of our GICB requirement to have one building is locate them at the end of the building that is immediately adjacent to the pool. So they won't be a freestanding building, and so they will be designed as part of the hub building. Does that
And
make
part of the
sense?
pool, and part of the pool too somehow?
Yeah, the access.
Attached to
right
the
there.
pool.
Yeah, they'll be at the end of the building adjacent to the pool, but they will be part of the building. So they'll be designed with the building.
I can hardly wait to see that and how that's going to look.
So with the RFP, what is the timeline you're looking at putting out?
It's a short timeline. Well, not a short timeline, but we're planning to issue it and require responses by the beginning of September. It'll depend on exactly what date we post it, but we'll give a 3-week response time.
Perfect. Okay.
Sorry,
Councillor Tots?
As far as the project scope inclusion, what exactly does that mean? Does that just mean that they've included all of those bullets that are above?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Councillor Lightfoot?
I'm just looking at some of the components that they're asked to provide information about, and in particular, the portable lift, the side furniture. Those to me are accessories or additions that could be fundraised from outside sources. It wouldn't necessarily have to be through the GIBC grant.
This is just getting quotes on them.
Yeah, it'll give us a good idea of what.
Yeah, and from there we can take stuff out.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, comments, all those in favor of the motion?
Mhm.
Care. Okay, now we move on to item number 7.3, which is the purchase of a Ford 150. And back to you, Diane?
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Connor. And we have briefly talked about this before, about utilizing our grant money that we've received through the local climate action program to purchase an electric vehicle. So the Public Works Department did have 3 vehicles. They had a dump truck, a fairly new half-ton, and a very old half-ton. And the old half-ton was damaged when somebody was trying to well, take it actually from down at the mill site, and they've destroyed the steering column. And so we went through ICBC, and it was going to cost more money to repair it than it was worth. And so anyway, we're down a truck is the at the end of the day, we're down a truck, and looking at this as an option, as a funding source to buy a new truck. We would have it would be an electric truck. We would be able to use it for booting around town, and also when people need to drive to Kamloops to deliver water samples and wastewater samples, they could take the electric vehicle instead of the 3/4 ton diesel vehicle, or that type of thing. It would just be a much more economical and environmentally friendly way to get around, and it fulfills the need that we have for an extra vehicle. We did do a request for quotes. We received 3 quotes, so we're recommending that we purchase from the dealership that came in with the lowest quote, and to have I believe it's the 7-year warranty. Lisa, can you remind me if it was the 7-year that we went with?
It was, yes.
Yeah, we were going back and forth on all the different warranties and costs, but we did add in the one that was recommended as kind of being the most appropriate.
Thank you. So let's put the motion forward to purchase the Ford 150 from Surrey. Thank you. Seconder?
Sure.
Thank you. And all those not all those in favor. Just Yes, we'll ask questions. Questions and comments. Oh, Councillor Lightfoot.
I actually have a question first, if you could help me clarify, what vehicles do we have now? You said a half-ton, is that a diesel we have?
I think both of them are diesel. We have the dump truck and a half-ton.
Okay, so the dump truck would be for sanding in the winter, and the other one's what they use to run around with right now? Okay. So the climate action program, is that specifically for electrical vehicles, or could it be for like solar panels?
It could be for solar panels. It could be for any climate action initiative.
And I was somewhat caught off guard when you say when we have to deliver water samples to Kamloops. I don't recall historically that we ever did that. Maybe it's because Perlator hasn't been visiting us recently or whatever, but that seems an outrageous
It's been like that for a while.
demand.
The
Yeah.
bands be the same.
Excuse me.
Twice maybe, we've never done that.
Sorry. And Melissa has mentioned, and I think we all know that the bands are transporting. So that's something I think we need to work on, is some coordinated effort to put these samples in, because that's as ungreen as you can get.
We've tried to align our schedules with the bands to do that, and we haven't had any success so far. That doesn't mean we won't still keep trying.
So back to the motion. Sorry.
So I hesitate. I went online and looked at ratings for these vehicles, and none of them rate very well. It's like a 2 out of 5. This particular model you're suggesting was the best of the bunch, and it's still only rated 2 out of 5. So I'm hesitant to support this motion. We've got 2 public works people. I don't know why we need 3 trucks. I'm just being blunt in my position at this point, but I can be swayed if someone has something they want to share.
Are there any
Can I just
other
add that-
comments? Oh, yes, would you like to respond?
I would like to respond. We did speak to Abbotsford, who have, I think, 20 of these vehicles, 20 of these Lightning trucks, and their public works department had no complaints. They actually thought that they were, good work trucks. So I'll just add that. But the other thing is we do have two people full-time permanent in Public Works, but we also have Brian trying to do recovery. And right now it's very inefficient for them to be trying to pass off trucks, and one guy needs a truck and he doesn't have a truck, and then he's stranded and he doesn't have his equipment because it's down at the mill, and he doesn't have a truck. Like it is very difficult for them to try to juggle when at least three of them are pretty kind of in a vehicle all day. The seasonal worker doesn't need a truck, and we've got a little plan figured out where he gets dropped off with his equipment and it all works. But through this and that, frankly, that's why the white half ton that we have, it was purchased by recovery. It was purchased as part of the recovery funding so that it could be dedicated to that.
Now Daryl has his hand up. Is that I guess we'll have him make a comment.
Need to unmute. Here you go. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, just to add to Diane's comments, and the comments regarding delivery. We've arranged to drop off water samples now at the Ashcroft Hospital. So it's a lot quicker turnaround now. Sewage samples have to come into Kamloops, however.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
All right, any
clarification.
other comments or questions? Councillor Toss.
two-part. How often, just out of curiosity, how often do the sewer samples go to Kamloops?
Sewage goes once a month.
Just once a month. Okay, so that's not too onerous as far as green, initiatives. But the other question I have is any of that funding available for a charge station in town to support this and perhaps be also used
So-
for?
Let's go back to the motion about, we're talking about purchasing the truck first, and then maybe we can.
I might support it if there was a charge station. So it is.
So can you
relevant.
comment on the type of charging it would require?
We've
Yeah.
put a charge station in the Public Works building
Okay, there you go.
for Public Works equipment generally, including
Yeah.
this truck, but
Yeah,
for other
thank you.
equipment as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, Councillor McCann.
I'm just curious about the actual grant, Diane. Is there a time limit on this? Is it a one-time thing, or is it gonna roll around and we're gonna see some other money coming forward at a later date? What do you know about that?
This is a program that's been in place for, I believe, 3 years, and we have created a reserve called the Local Government Climate Action Program Reserve. It has $202,000 in it right now, which is what we've received to this point. When I was at the GFOA conference back in May, I met with the folks from the LG CAP program, and they shared with me that one of the challenges that they have is that municipalities aren't spending this funding. Everybody's putting it in reserves, and it makes it difficult to keep these programs going when things aren't getting spent. So I anticipate that, as long as municipalities, communities are implementing using these funds to implement different initiatives, we will continue to see funding from this program. We've been getting about $41,000 a year, and then we got a little top-up payment one year. So, and it was actually really interesting. Every year I have to fill out a survey about, what we've done with the money and what we plan to do with the money. And they share information about what different communities are doing. And there are some really cool projects going on out there. Much of them are in, communities much larger than ours, but it is a great program, and there's a lot of different things that can be done with the funding. This is just one suggestion of something so that we can be seen to be utilizing the funding, participating in the program, supporting our provincial partners.
This purchase wouldn't use up the entire reserve. It would only use up a portion of it.
Correct. There'd be approximately $120,000 left in the reserve.
Councillor Lightfoot.
I don't know how these warranties work, but, say we went with the suggested motion that's coming from Surrey. Can its maintenance be done in Kamloops, or does it have to go all the way down to Surrey every time to have maintenance? Is that transferable?
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe that you can take any Ford vehicle to any Ford dealership for warranty work.
Correct. That's my understanding too. I've purchased a Ford in the past, and it was fully transferable to other dealerships.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other comments or questions, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Yours was in favor, I'm sorry. Yes, it was. You're right beside, you're right beside me, it's hard to see. Carried, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel Member Cat. We will move on to corporate officer. We have Lisa Storoshenko regarding building amendment bylaw.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this is just pretty much kind of more of a housekeeping. It's just an amendment to kind of bring us in line with other local governments, and also just allowing us to like we're subject to a lot of the building permits and fees and things like that. So, and then we have to do an internal transfer. So this will allow us to just exempt us from the fees. And so that will allow us to be a bit more streamlined, a little more efficient, help us with the overhead, and again, line us with other local governments. So it's pretty simple.
Thank you. So we have a recommended motion. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I will
Thank
second.
you, Councillor McCann. Are there any questions, comments regarding this? Makes sense. Councillor McCann.
Once again, I just need to understand what's going on. So right now, if the village wanted to build something, they submit to themselves a building permit and they pay all of these fees to the village. So the village pays themselves. Is there anyone else getting any money when this transaction happens?
Not from my understanding. So Diane, I'm not sure if you can answer
No,
that about
no,
the
no, there
finance. No.
isn't.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So the building inspector that is coming from somewhere else, that's still a contract with the village of Lytton, not with somebody else.
He still gets paid like normal. Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to figure out how the heck, okay. No,
I would think the only other thing we're paying is our staff to do that work.
Yeah, and the back and
Which-
forth and following.
Which this
and
most
the
makes
journal.
total sense. So
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
not.
It alleviates that whole section of work to be done.
Okay, so-
I get it now. Thank you, Lisa.
All right, all those in favor of this motion? Carried. All right, so now we move on to, where are we? Director of Development. So we have Carolyn Lamont online regarding the services activity report.
This is your monthly report, and as you can see, it's still fairly slow, which is consistent with this time of year typically, as well as the whole economic uncertainty. Now, in saying that, I do believe that we had hoped more building permits or planning inquiries at this time. So maybe just as I have the floor right now, I'd say that if there are people looking to rebuild and they would need some help navigating, that is, as Diane said, one of my roles. The inspectants, and I'm in the office, you can just check the newsletter. They're posting my hours, but I could also do it on Zoom meetings and calls. The inspections are moving along quite well. They're going to get all caught up pretty soon, meaning that we're not going to have any active permits. So we need some new permits. But there are some new discussions, so that's good. And then development applications have been fairly stagnant. On the flip side, and I won't get into the mayor's report, or the mayor and council report content, but I will say that Haga Park is, I believe the shade structure is done. But I'll leave it at that. I know personally I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and the contractors that we retained to do that work were excellent. I'll just touch on a couple other things. One, there was a film permit, and I for a Gold Rush film, and I kind of went, oh, what does that mean? But when you go on their site, it's a French film about the history and the good and the bad of the Gold Rush. So Indigenous history, immigrant history, and as well. So I'm looking forward. That will come out next fall, not this fall, next fall. So that was sort of interesting. We kind of had to run around because we weren't aware of that yet, how to do all of that, and so it was good practice for us. And then the other is the official community plan, and we did just a soft rollout to staff last week, which to me, as someone that's new to Lytton and doesn't live in Lytton, was really great to have staff, many that have been there for quite a long time, sort of tell me about things and learn about and things that I need to know as we move forward. And then likewise, we went to the farmers market, which again, and we will have someone again at the farmers market this week. And we also had some great enthusiastic students from Stein Valley School come, which was great. I'm always trying to convince them to go into planning or architecture or something. So, when they see maps, they're really excited, then they're my people. And then the last bit is just economic development. And again, meeting with staff, that was some great ideas come out of that, just some obvious things. And as we move forward, and also talking to a consultant to help us with when the OCP starts its launch. And I'm meeting with them, I believe, tomorrow to talk about sort of an inspirational speaker or things, if that would work. So that's really what we've been working on. But as we move forward with the OCP towards the end of September, hopefully, subject to the INCUCAPMA consultation. That would be great. It'll keep me very busy.
Great, thank you.
Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Carolyn? Councillor Toss?
Yes, thank you for the report. I'm just wanting to put my 2 bits in around how important I think that pharmacy and AG economic development bullet is for our community, and appreciate all the work you can do on that. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? We need a motion to bring this or to receive this report for information.
Also move.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Lightfoot. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right,
Thank you.
moving on to thank you, Carolyn. Moving on to item number 7.4, Public Works. We have Daryl Haxani here, who's our municipal engineer, with a report regarding Reservoir 265. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, and good evening, everyone. Lisa, if you could bring up the PowerPoints, please. Yes, so I will try and go through this at an easy pace, just so if there's any questions along the way, we can have a little discussion rather than waiting right till the end because it's fairly lengthy. So some history here. I think it was back in 2023. There was a call for proposals to assess the water and sewer infrastructure. Project came back and was awarded to Archimedes Engineering and Mundell Engineering. And that was 2023. And we received the sewer report last year. This past June, we've received the water component of that assessment. So now we have reviewed it. In the meantime, since we were waiting for that, we've also gathered and sourced various drawings and reports going back over about 20 years or so to kind of supplement the information. So in terms of this presentation, I really just want to talk about some of the concerns that we have and the things we need to look at coming up in the near future. Lisa, next slide, please.
Okay, have we lost Daryl?
No, it's just, yeah, there's
there you are.
yeah.
Sorry.
I was just waiting to see if there's any questions or anything. So, okay,
Oh.
yeah, so over the last 20 years, there's been a number of reports. So walking back a little bit in history, around I think it was around 2005 in that era, there was some work done on looking at new sources of wells. So McElhaney was involved, and they there was 2 new wells drilled. Wells, we called them wells 2 and well 3. They did an evaluation of how they should be connected to the system. Following that, there was an Opus Water Capital Plan that was completed in 2016, and they did a comprehensive look at the entire village system. And over the years, there's been quite a number of reports by Golder and Associates. Excuse me. They've done a number of source water protection plans, wellhead protection plans, and a fair bit of analysis on the some of the wells over history. So next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of at a high level, a water system It typically includes supply, and that's usually wells or surface water or both in our case. There's a water treatment component, and that's to a 43210 criteria. That's an interior health criteria. And I think Kevin Vilak had talked a little bit about this in the June presentation. So there's a 4-log requirement. That's the 4-log requirement reduction for bacteria and viruses. And just to give you a bit of context what that means in terms of 4-log, it means 99.99%. Okay, so a 3-log reduction then is 99.9%. So that gives you a bit of context of what that actually means. So the 3 component, that's a 3-log reduction in Giardia and crypto. The 2 represents having at least 2 barriers for treatment. So in our case, we have chlorination and UV. The 1 stands for having no more than 1 NTU of turbidity in the system. And the 0 is for 0 coliform, so no fecal coliforms in the system. The next component is water storage, and the water storage provides capacity for your domestic use and for fire storage. And lastly, the water distribution system. So that's all the pipes now with the treated water. It transfers the water from the reservoirs to the point of use at your tap. So in terms of the Lytton system, we're fortunate because we actually have the Lytton Creek intake, and we have 3 wells. The history on the wells, we have 2 active wells, 2 and 3. We have a well number 1, which I'll talk again in a following slide. That well is currently not active. There's raw water piping from the supply, so wells 2 and 3 pump through a raw water supply. It pumps all the way up to near the intake to our treatment plant. And from there, it's treated and it goes to our storage facilities. There is, again, as I mentioned, a multi-barrier treatment system. So we currently have UV and chlorination. We have 4 reservoirs. Two are in each pressure zone, which I'll talk about shortly. And we have 2 pressure zones, which I'll again talk about in a following slide. And finally, we've got about 9 kilometers of distribution piping once the water comes from the reservoirs to your tap. Next slide, please. So some general terminology, just so you kind of have a context when I'm going through this. ADD represents what's called the average day demand. So that number is basically what is your yearly total water usage divided by the number of days. And it can be further, for design purposes, it can be distinguished per person. So you can take that and use it in some of your design evaluation. MDD stands for maximum day demand, and it's a key design parameter in sizing your wells and sizing your storage facilities. Again, the water treatment, we follow the 43210 protocol. Water storage, that provides capacity for domestic use and fire storage. There's also a contingency allowance on top of those 2 components. The water distribution that then is transferred from the water storage reservoirs to the point of use. And in terms of the reservoirs, you may have heard the terminology. We call it like the zones in the village. The 265 zone, we call it the 265 reservoir, and the 345 reservoir. And what that really means is the design top of water is at 265 meters for the 265 zone. That controls the pressure down in the lower village. The 345 is the top of water in the reservoir in the upper reservoirs, and that controls the pressure in the upper zone. That services Loring Way, the motel, and the school. I don't know if there's any questions at this point.
Are there any questions, or shall we carry on? Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm just curious, when you mentioned 4 reservoirs, do you consider the holding pond one of the reservoirs?
No, we only consider the treated water, because that's what's available to go to use. And while we're on that slide, I've also have some inset photos, and these are all photos from our system. So the photo you see there, that's the inside of the control structure for well number 2.
All right, Councillor Toss.
Thank you. When you mentioned, Daryl, thank you, the water coming from the well and then pumps back up to the storage facility. When you said storage facility, do you mean the reservoir?
Correct.
mean
So from
well?
wells 2 and 3, that water gets pumped. Water gets pumped up to our treatment plant, which is up right beside the 3, 4, 5 reservoir. Well, actually, there's 2 reservoirs, so it gets pumped up to there. There was another slide that actually shows the treatment building, so we'll just watch for that picture.
Great.
That should be, I think, coming up.
So it's pumped up to the treatment facility, but the actual storage container is
The
the
storage, yeah, so the storage, there's the 3, 4, 5 reservoirs that is right beside the treatment plant, up near
That's
the
right.
intake.
Okay.
That water actually cascades down to the 265. So the water, there is no well water or supply that actually goes directly to the 265. The 3, 4, 5 actually cascades down and tops up the 265 reservoir.
You. Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm still not clear where the 4 reservoirs are. I know there's 2 up top and there's the 265. I believe it's divided. Is that considered as 2 reservoirs?
Correct. We call them cells. So there's 2 cells at the 3, 4, 5. So there's 2 compartments. So there, each one is a tank. And then the 265, there's again 2 more tanks.
Oh, okay.
So I call them 4 reservoirs, but the 2 of the tanks service each pressure zone.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll carry on then.
Thank you.
So in terms of our supply, yes, we have the Lytton Creek intake, which has been active for quite a number of years, and we have the 3 wells. Well 1, we're currently requesting an assessment we've submitted an RFP to 2 hydrogeologists. We would like to get an assessment for looking at the options to bring that possibly back online and connect either in the 265 zone or pump up to the 345 zone.
Good.
Okay. We've also nearly completed earlier, I think it was February, March, we submitted an RFP to do an impound assessment. Staff had some concerns with the integrity of the impound and storage and so forth, and the operational issues in terms of cleaning and such. So that report we're expecting any day now. So in terms of our water supply, we need one more well at some time in the near future. So well 1 could serve as that additional supply source. In the terms of reference for the hydrogeologist, I've also asked for a desktop assessment to also look at alternate locations where we could drill a well and get some cost estimates what that may entail. And in terms of, I've given a rating to each system. So in terms of our water supply, I've given it a 3 out of 5 rating. And some concerns that we have right now is that with only 2 of the 3 wells operational and during seasonal, I guess, low water or during high turbidity at freshet, we need to operate the 2 wells, but they don't have quite the full operating design capacity for the system. So we need that 3rd well. Another concern, and this has somewhat been addressed historically in some of Golder's reports. They've done wellhead protection assessments, and they've outlined a wellhead protection area for each well with some fairly sophisticated modeling and such. So one of the things that I would like to see is maybe a bit more community involvement, engagement on what that wellhead protection means, where it's located, and maybe some visual signs out in the community that this is an area of our drinking water aquifer, just so people know that this is an important area. So if there's any spills or anything like that, then they should be immediately addressed. And lastly, another thing that we'll be needing to look at is an emergency response plan. So in terms of if there's ever a spill, how do we address that?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay, so that's the end of your presentation right now, or do you have more?
Oh, no. That's just,
Oh.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
we're just getting going.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
But I don't know if there's any questions from that slide or?
Yeah, doesn't look like it, no.
Okay. So yeah, so for history of the water supply, many of you probably know that historically Lytton has used surface water supply for quite some time. And that's going back, I think, pre 1990, typically it was only surface water supply. So about 1991, well number 1 was drilled. And that well pumped directly into the local zone for the village in the lower area, was what we now call the 265 pressure zone. Wells 2 and 3 were drilled around 2008, and they were connected in 2018. Well number 1 is currently inactive, and as I mentioned, we're doing an assessment on that. We should have both proposals to evaluate here and have a recommendation to council fairly shortly. We've also have the Lytton Creek impound assessment, and that will be completed fairly soon. So in terms of our water treatment system, as I mentioned, we have UV disinfection and chlorination, and it's regularly checked by trained operators. One of the things, and I've had discussions with Interior Health, they would like us to add a filtration system, and that's primarily due to the fact that we run on a surface water system. And the key concern is if we provide filtration, that'll give us a bit more resiliency, and we can use the Lytton Creek system a little bit more over the year, particularly during freshet in the spring. So once we've got that in place, then we have to rely less on the well pumping system. So in terms of rating, I would give that out about a 4 out of 5. And once we get filtration, that I would probably even bump up even a little bit more. If you look at the inset photos, that's actually pictures of our water treatment plant. So one of the things you'll notice, the bottom photo, that's our incoming water, that's the UV reactors. So typically in a municipal system, things will be, in smaller systems, they'll be installed in what's called duplex. So you'll have 2 of each. So that gives you some flexibility in terms of if you have to take one out for service, you've got the other one. Or during really high and peak flows, you can actually run both. And then in the upper photo, that's there's a separate room on the back side of the wall of the UV reactors for chlorination. So there's 2 chlorine pumps on the back wall that provide, again, in a duplex setup for injecting chlorine into the water for disinfection. If there's no questions, we can go to the next slide. Okay, again, so for water storage, our water is stored in a 265 zone reservoir with 2 cells, and the capacity of those is 360 cubic meters. We also have the 345 zone, and that has a total of 925 cubic meters. The total approximate storage is around 1,300 cubic meters. And if you look quickly on the inset photo, that's a picture just outside the treatment building. And if you can see just over the bank there, you can see some lids and hatches. Those are the reservoirs there. So in terms of our reservoir capacity, we size the reservoirs for domestic use by people and capacity for fire flows. And one note in terms of firefighting needs, and we can have a little further discussion a little bit later on, this doesn't factor in interface firefighting needs. So one of the components that we may want to look at in the future is additional storage. But generally, in terms of rating, the structures are in good condition. They're fairly new. There's some issues and reports of maybe we could use a little bit more storage. There's a bit more work required to that because there's also another factor in terms of if we implement fire sprinkler systems in buildings, that's under a fire underwriters setup. We can actually reduce the load of hydrant fire flows, which actually would moderate a little bit of our storage requirements as well. So a little bit of stuff that we've still got to look around at in the background here in terms of that. But again, the storage is actually in reasonably good condition. And as a final note, current requirements for commercial type buildings, we currently require 150 liters per second fire flow for a duration of 2 hours. So in terms of total capacity, that's 1,080 cubic meters. So you can kind of put that in context with what we have now. It doesn't actually meet if you follow the requirements in terms of what we use for a domestic demand and our max data demand, plus the fire for commercial. It doesn't quite meet it, but it's a little bit low, but not too bad. If there's no further questions, we can move to the next slide.
Can I just clarify that?
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Availability for fires are huge issues, so I just want to make sure I understood what you just said. And it sounds like we're close, but we're not really great when it comes to fire protection in the system because of the sprinklers system that would be required. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if we're going to rely fully just on hydrant fire protection,
Yeah.
we would want more storage.
Okay.
We would want more storage. I think the Opus report defined that as an additional, I think it was 400 cubic meters. So not a massive amount, but it's still, you have to go through the motions of doing all the design work for a new tank, finding a location to put it. And that the likely location probably, if there's space, would be to put it up at the high zone, because that would also feed the 265 zone. So you'd kind of kill two birds with one stone. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. So in terms of now water distribution, we have about 9 kilometers of pipe. So we have a fair bit of pipe. It ranges in size from 50 millimeters to 200 millimeters in size. Our current bylaw requires minimum size water mains of 150 millimeters. I think that bylaw was written, I think, in the late 90s, and that's still relatively current. For firefighting, typically we want minimum of 150, preferably 200. If you have very large flows, you may need more. Typically, your main feeds from your reservoir, that's where you're going to want the biggest lines. And that's going to be some of the things we're going to have to look at in the near future in terms of where we're going to allocate grant funding and so forth. Many lines are very old. I'm thinking 50 years or more. Galvanized iron. They're currently east of Maine. We're replacing a number of lines. They were poorly installed lines that they weren't actually supposed to be put in for municipal mains in streets. So fortunately now we're getting some of that out of the street and we're putting in proper mains. So we're basically putting in 150 millimeter mains as a minimum size. One quick note, Indigenous Services, they have their own design standard, and we do we're adjacent to Lytton First Nation, IR 17 and IR 18. But ISC standards for fire flows, they require only 30 liters per second for fire flow. So substantially less than what we would design for a municipal system. So ours actually meets that, reasonably well. one of the reasons why Indigenous Services has a lower requirement is part of the problem is it's for serving lower populations. One of the issues is that if you don't have a lot of domestic use, the water in your reservoirs doesn't circulate very well. It'll sit, and the chlorine that provides disinfection in your reservoir and in your lines, that will decay over time, and you can actually get bacterial regrowth in your system. So it's something that interior health would really not be happy about. So that's why they typically require less for fire flow, just so they can increase water circulation in their community. So once you start getting to the hundreds of people, then you're starting to get some decent water circulation. So it's not as much of an issue. But one of the things for the Lytton community right now is that we're at a fairly low population, so water circulation is an important factor. Okay, so in terms of what we need to target in terms of to look at in the community for upgrading, we've noted a potential zone restriction around the 265 reservoir. And the inset photo, it's some drawings I'd found from Opus, and that was the raw water supply line. And that's where the inset photo, it shows the line crossing the highway. And then it climbs through a steep gully and lands up on top of the 265 reservoir just north of IR-17. Looking at all the drawings, and I've sourced some drawings from McElhaney Consultants who did the reservoir that's just off to the left of that inset drawing. We've noted that there could be a smaller line that we should upgrade quite soon. Yesterday we were out on site and we reviewed the site, looked at it, we located all the valves, and actually it looks to be installed fairly close to what the drawings show. We did find a valve at the base by the highway. So we'll be talking a little bit more of what our strategy is about trying to remedy that situation. But currently, with the leakage in our system, I would only rate the system 1 out of 5. And one of the current issues, and it'll be coming up, I think, on the next slide, it's relating to water leakage. Okay.
Councillor Toss, did you have a question?
Sure, and I think it might be a question that would come up more when the motion around TwinCon's expanded scope comes up. But I happened to be speaking with some of the gentlemen up there working on that project, and they mentioned some clay pipes. I'm not sure if this is the right slide to ask it, but you were talking about the leakage and the 2-inch pipes being put in, and now we need the 4-inch basically. And the gentleman said that there's clay pipes that should be addressed while we have that open. I don't know exactly what he was talking about. Maybe you have some information on that?
Yeah, nothing for the water system. That would be referring to the sewer system. So what happened on the East of Main project? I looked through all the sewer videos, and in the lower village, we started doing some of the sewer repairs, and the sewer videos showed that the lower sewer, basically anywhere west of Main Street, was in really, really poor shape. We're talking fairly major sags, poor grading, like really, really flat lines, root intrusion, some areas of partial collapse. So really, really poor. So that's why we've targeted some of the sewer projects in the lower portion of the village, particularly on the trunk sewer areas. So starting down at the sewage treatment plant and working our way up. I think he's referring to now the East of Mains, where we do have, again, clay tile pipe, but I've looked at all those videos, and actually the pipes are in actually fairly good shape. But we also have to look at possibly to get, extend the life of those pipes east of Main, is look at relining of those lines and also make sure all the services are intact and in good shape. And that's one of the things we're currently reviewing with TwinCon.
So that is clay. The clay pipe you're talking about is sewer, not water. Is that correct?
Correct. That'd be sewer. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
follow up on that though. The comment made by the gentleman was that while this project is already ripped up, whatever, 10 feet deep for this line, it would make sense, according to this gentleman, to also address the clay pipes so you're not going through the whole archaeology and the digging up once again when it's already open. Has that been considered?
Correct. But we're looking at the option, and actually we're going to actually be revideoing the lines to first check again what the condition of the pipes are. Just following, it's been a year since we've looked at the videos. We've had construction in the area. We want to make sure they're still in good shape, because if, we've had some, serious issues, collapses, that sort of thing, yes, we'll probably want to do a physical dig and actually put new lines in. But if the lines are in still good shape, relining is probably a very practical option that'll actually save a fair bit of grant funding, because our grant allocations, we've got a lot of places that we need to spend it. So we're trying to be really tight with our money to make sure that we can stretch that funding as far as it'll go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll carry on then, Daryl.
Okay, so here's where we get into the water demand. So I did a quick summary and I looked back through some of the older reports. So again, I talked about what average day demand is and max day demand. MDD is used in design for water systems as a key criteria. So, excuse me. Looking at the design criteria, and about 20 years ago, City of Kamloops, they implemented water meters, and I think as I recall, their numbers were a little bit higher than they are now. I've recently come across some information that I think that with metering, I think they dropped about 50% in usage. But looking through over the years, you can see the McElhaney report. So in the pre-design report, McElhaney reported two periods of time, one in 2008 and one in 2005. I assume the population was about the same because it's been fairly a flat population for some time in terms of growth. So in 2005, the average day demand was about 2,700 liters per person per day. And then the maximum day demand was 5,200 and 5,100 for 2008. In terms of max day demand, I don't think I mentioned that, but max day demand essentially means that's basically the maximum amount of water you're using, say, on the hottest day of the year when everyone's irrigating, that sort of thing. So if you get a bunch of years and you're the most water you've used in any one day in the year, that's your maximum day demand. If you go over a number of years, you'd take the highest number. So that's what represents your highest water use for one day. So if you put it in context, you look actually, OPA's reported in a population 366, I estimated the average day demand at about 2,300, still pretty high, but not, fairly similar to what McElhaney reported. And I think Kevin Vilak had talked earlier in June about the public works numbers from 2024. And we're looking at about 3,050. I think he talked about a 10% reduction in overall water use. Quickly, if you look at the City of Kamloops requirements, average day demand of 800 liters per person. If you look at the BC average, it's 400 per person. So when you put that in context, so you take a shower in the morning, you run it for 15 minutes. How much water is that? Maybe 100, 150 liters. You turn on your washing machine, you wash dishes, flush the toilet a few times. The BC average probably isn't too far off that. So you're getting a feeling for how much water use we're using in the village. And this is affecting the design of infrastructure. So we have to oversize everything to meet these requirements. One of my key concerns when you put it in context of how much water a person would actually use in a day is how much leakage we probably have in the system because of old leaky pipes. And that's a big concern. That's a really big concern because basically, especially if we're on the wells, we've got to pump the water up a long ways. That's a lot of energy, right? So however we can try and save and conserve water and get that usage down, it's going to reduce operating costs over the longer term. And it's also going to reduce design costs. It's going to actually extend the life of your systems too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any questions off that, from that. We can go to the next slide.
Councillor Lightfoot.
I've just got a couple of comments because I've seen those numbers for a long time over the years. And maybe the BC average is 400, but what percentage of those people live in apartments that don't have any lawn, that don't have a car to wash, that don't have kids to play out in sprinklers, that live in a wet area as opposed to a dry, windy, hot area? So I believe that leakage is a big issue, but I also don't think that we can realistically hit that mark of even 800, because in Kamloops, again, you have a lot of apartment buildings. And even if the population in Lytton was 365 during the day, historically, people would come in and work. People would come in and use the hotels and the shops and tourism, whatever would elevate that number, especially in the summer months when I assume the highest usage would occur. So I appreciate what you have to say, but I think the specifics of our situation will not allow us to hit a low number like 400 or even 800.
I would just add that, you know, this is data we have.
Yeah.
And so Daryl is presenting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, those are excellent points, and they're you know, they're probably spot on. But one of the things we need to consider, and one of the things that we can do is we can go back and look at our SCADA data and look at what I like to do is look at maybe low periods of time, like in December. What is our water use then? Because that gives us a really good indication. It takes that peak usage when people are watering their lawns, they're running through sprinklers, that sort of thing. And that's again where the maximum day demand comes in a little bit, because the maximum day demand factors in that high usage that you have during you know, when it's hot out and people are watering, they're drinking lots of water, they're watering their grass, that sort of thing. And then in terms of, you're absolutely correct. This data, and you know, you can factor in terms if you've got a fair transient population, that isn't factored in here per se. But it is relevant that you'd have to consider it. Right now we don't really have an issue with, you know, a significant amount of transient population like the motels and so forth. The school less so, because that's somewhat combined too with local school kids in the village. Of course, if there's kids that are coming in from outside being bussed in, that's adding to the overall demand. So that those are legitimate factors, but this kind of gauges a little bit in terms of you know, really it's exorbitantly high. And the key point where I'd compare this to would be the city of Kamloops, because, you know, geographically and weather, you're not too different. You're maybe a little bit warmer than Kamloops, but it should be somewhat similar.
Yeah.
I just like to make a, thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I just like to make a comment anecdotally that living in the village, I don't see an exorbitant amount of personal water use. I'd be really curious and supportive, I think, at this point of a water meter system so that we could really drill down, no pun intended, but drill down to, you know, the personal use versus the leakage. I sense that it's predominantly a leakage issue, not a personal use. And I know Kevin Belak mentioned, you know, cleaning the streets with water and things like that I just don't see happening in the village. So I think it is more than likely a leakage issue.
Which is a system we had previous.
Exactly,
Yeah.
But to like even the drought factor, I don't think is, and like you say, maybe the winter will give us more data on that, but I really feel like maybe a water metering system would settle everything.
Would give you more data.
Yeah, thank you.
Those are excellent points, really excellent. Water meters would help because another point is we have a water meter at the water treatment plant. So we know what we're producing. If we had water meters in every building, we could actually tell what the net difference is and what our leakage is.
Yeah.
That would be
Thank you.
invaluable to Public Works in terms of looking at what we need to do and what we need, how we need to plan for improvements. It would be really, really excellent. And the scary part, City of Kamloops went through water meters about 20 years ago, and it was really a tough sell. But I think in case of Lytton, it's not necessarily something that you have to meter and charge people for.
Mhm.
You could put, you know, a simple meter is not that expensive. You know, even if the village picked up that cost,
Mhm.
we could then monitor it. We don't, you know, you don't necessarily have to charge residents. It's just a matter of means of collecting data. So now you can see, and not only that, your Public Works can then look at the data that they're collecting and say, oh, something's happened in our system. We, you know, over this month, we've increased our water usage significantly from the metered usage to what we're discharging at the treatment plant. So now you can kind of start looking at stuff before you've, you know, a couple of years have passed and you've had to pump a whole lot of excess water up the hill.
Mhm.
So, you know, it operationally would pay a lot of dividends.
Councillor Lightfoot.
Just for information, so I first got on council in '05 and meters were installed, I believe, in '06. They were installed in the homes. And so there was a bit of an issue because there's some sidelines between the curb stop and the house. So it perhaps wasn't as accurate as it could have been. But it was good information. And as time went on, the meters became less efficient and were not able to be serviced, so sort of left aside.
I wonder if we can carry on with the report.
Can I ask the question?
Is it about report? Yes.
Yeah, it's,
Go ahead.
it is in regards to the water metering, which I think that Daryl might have the best answer to. And that is, well, actually, no, it might be a Diane Lumbercat question. I forget the answer to it. I know that the question was put out there when this came up before. Were we insured for those? Because they weren't functioning. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Daryl.
Okay, yeah, and I think we probably, from the course of discussion, we've talked a little bit about this, so we can kind of move through this and fairly quickly. Just in terms of the max data man, which is a design parameter, typically you're about 3 times from your ADD. Lytton is 1.9 to 2.3. So that again somewhat indicating there's probably some leakage in the system because it's really skewing the data in terms of how much water an individual person is using. And and as Councillor Toss said it, I don't think, you know, I don't think people are wasting water in the village personally. I think they're probably fairly reasonable in their usage. Like, and I think there was a note last presentation in June, if somebody left a garden hose, that is fairly significant. If somebody leaves a garden hose running or something like that, if you have leaky toilets, that can be significant. So, you know, proper maintenance and so forth, that can help. But again, I don't think even at the worst, you know, I think it might be 1,000 per person. So I think we should be much lower.
Additionally, not all properties have lawn at this point or plants. There's nothing to water.
And a couple of the inset photos from the last 2, that's actually the current water main construction that's going on east of Main. You're looking at the photo there now, that's 5th Street. And the previous one was Alonzo Way. So in terms of priorities, we would like to, and especially since we have a contractor now in town, we would like to investigate and really to find out what's going on at the 265 reservoir. It looks like we may have a line that we should increase in size. We actually on Monday we walked around with the contractor and we looked at it. I went out with Jim. Jim Rowe was there as well, and we investigated the site. We located all the valves on the system. So I think in terms of what we'd like to do there, we'd probably do a 2-stage approach. As the first stage is we'd like to actually get a survey of the area, survey all the valves, get some topographic information, and then I get the contractor to do some test pits so we can actually see what's in the ground. There's also some old infrastructure, like there's an old PRV chamber that was never really fully decommissioned or probably would have been best if it would have been taken out. Because before they had the 265 reservoir, the water used to come down from the 345 area into the PRV, and that's what would lower the water pressure down into the main village. But that's still sitting there as a chamber. You can open up and you can look at all the valving and stuff. So we would like to, take a look and just see what's going on with that. Was it actually physically disconnected back when they did the upgrading in 2018 or what happened? So there's various water main projects throughout 265 zone and the 345 zone, which we'd like to undertake. We will be looking in more detail what are the priority projects because our grant funding is fairly tight, and we'll be coming back to council with some recommendations on how we allocate that grant funding. Okay. For well number one, as I noted earlier, we have two RFPs out for hydrogeologists to give us a price to evaluate well number one. Well number one. So what the scope of well number one assessment? I've asked them to take a look. I want a yield test. I want a comprehensive chemical analysis of the water. Also to put a camera down the well, see if there's any rehab that we need to do. It's been sitting for a number of years. Would like to get that possibly back online. If it's not looking feasible in terms of wellhead protection, because right now, well number one is in I would say, archaic underground chamber. The wellhead protection strategies have really changed over the years. That would no longer be required the way it was built. So some of the discussions I've had with Interior Health, we've talked about bringing it up in a proper pitless adapter stick up on the well, so that kind of protects the well from surface water, proper drainage and seals. Also looking at how we're going to be disinfecting. Are we going to be disinfecting it locally, or are we going to be connecting it into the raw water supply line? That was originally a note on the Opus drawings that they were going to connect well one into that system. Not sure what happened, but that still could be an option. We would like to consider it. And lastly, for that well, we want to look at a desktop study from the hydrogeologist that assesses what are the areas where we could drill new wells? What is the probability of success? And what would the cost be? Because wells aren't cheap to drill. They're very risky. You can drill in one spot. You can go over a few meters, drill again, and not get any water. So they're very, very risky. So you got to really go carefully. So if you've got a functioning well and the water quality is good and you manage it well, emergency response, you should consider it. We've got 3 wells in the lower village, wells 2 and 3, they're active. So those wells are currently they're operating great, no issues. Operationally, we're working on a couple of things, but they're actually generally in really good shape. If we could add well 1, that would probably reduce your risk a little bit in terms of if you ever had any issues with surface water, any kind of contamination, you could mix and match which wells you're going to operate, that sort of thing, and then also look at drilling a new well if you had to. So it just gives you an extra option in terms of pumping. One other thing, and this is an IHA requirement, is that we should look at water filtration. That'll also help you in terms of operating, more year round, give you a bit more resiliency, and it'll improve your treatment. So your water quality will be a little bit better. You actually have really good water quality right now, so not really too many issues. And IHA has been, so far pretty happy. And operationally, we have, good crew. Kevin Vilak is really, really great operator that's helping us out. So we're, really appreciate having him on board and helping us out. Other priorities, fire. Assessing building fire risk, including fire sprinkler systems. I don't think fire sprinkler systems are something that's really been done a lot in Lytton. I've heard that possibly some of the Kent Road area and the school may have fire sprinklers in the building. They are useful. You got to think if a fire starts inside a building, it will address it. One of the concerns I have in Lytton is you get those winds. So any source of ignition with those winds, can be hazardous. So, if you get a building starting on fire, fire sprinkler systems will assess that risk. It also reduces the amount of water that you may need to require to pump at your hydrant or flow at your hydrant. There's credits if you run through what's called the Fire Underwriter Survey ISO calculations. You can get various credits and reductions on the amount of fire flow that you have to run and what capacity you have to use. There's also, I think, a larger community conversation here, and some of this stuff, Dan Mendel had brought this stuff up in terms of interface fires. How do you address those? Is there an economic way of doing it? It's worth a conversation to have in the community, and also looking at fire-resistant building techniques. How can we do better? What can we do? Landscaping. How can we make landscaping more resistant to fires? So I think there's a larger conversation there because I think some of the costs, maybe cost prohibitive. So I think you really have to think outside the box here and really, really, have a good conversation about it. And lastly, community awareness on wellhead protection. Make sure the community knows about the wells. Maybe we get some signs out to kind of delineate where is our wellhead protection area, just so it's evident. So if somebody spills something, oh, geez, I got to report that right away, right? So getting awareness that everyone's on board protecting your water supply. I think that with that, so for next steps, I wanted to prepare a bit of a map here so you could see things a little bit better, but we're waiting for some completion of some additional mapping, and then we'll prepare something. I think when we got that, and we've also had a bit more time to really reflect on our key target areas for distribution upgrading, I think we'll have to come back to council with a brief for how we're going to target the grant funding.
Hey,
Okay. Any questions?
we did ask a number of questions throughout the presentation.
Okay.
So why don't we put a motion forward to receive his report for information to start with? Do you have that? No, but I think we have received every other report for
I'll
information.
make that motion.
Thank you, and a seconder.
Sure, I'll second.
And all those in favor? Aye. Carried. And there was a recommended motion regarding looking at investigating water main concerns at the 265 reservoir. And I think it was around entering into a change order for twin con construction. Diane, did you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to remind council about where this funding is. This is the $5 million water grant. And at one time we had come and we had a list of projects that was approved for approximately 1.3 million. That was a number of small things that does include this East of Maine water project is the big piece, but a lot of other smaller things. So we are to return to council and then UBCM to let them know how the remaining 3.7 million is going to be expended. Because we have this fairly significant issue at 265 Reservoir, we're proposing that we start some investigation on that first, look to repair that first, see what kind of impact that has on the fire flows to the village, and then we'll be in a better position to recommend the remainder of the grant. So we're continuing to do it in steps, but it seems to be the best approach as we don't have all the information on any one piece. Thank you.
Okay. So we have this recommended motion then forward. Would anyone like to put that? Thank you. Councilor Ross, second. Councilor Michelle. Are there any questions or comments regarding it? Councilor Lytton.
Just a comment, that reservoir wasn't completed all that long ago, like less than 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm not sure who the proctor was. I should be able to remember I was there, but I don't. So there must be some dimension, some drawings specifying the dimensions of the piping and et cetera that was used. Is that something that you've been able to access?
Correct. We do have, I'd contacted McElhaney Consultants and I acquired some of their, they did the design on the 265 reservoir about, I think 14 years ago. So I did get design drawings. So we had a basis to start looking at what piping was installed. But that being said, I think we kind of want to do a two-stage approach in terms of what we're going to do up there. Because the first step is we have to do a bit of an investigation. So we need to do a bit of survey, and we can actually get TwinCon to help with that too, because they have a surveyor on site. And then they have the equipment, and we can actually do some investigation and do some test pits to kind of examine what is in the ground there. And once we know that information, we can decide on the next steps in terms of actual upgrading. So designing a new segment of water main and getting that constructed while they're still in town. Because right now, the water main construction that they're working on is they're working on services. Most of the mainline stuff is all complete. There's going to be a bit of sanitary stuff we're going to look at while they're there and working directly in the area, but they're in a couple of weeks, they're getting pretty close to being completed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Toss?
Just a quick comment, and I just wanted to say I appreciate the fluid approach, no pun intended again, but being able to switch course as required and not being stuck to the whatever plan we had at the outset, because obviously you're finding out things as you continue. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for that report and all of that information. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is bylaws. And we have one bylaw for reading, which is was presented to us earlier this evening. And we will put the motion forward for the first 3 readings to building bylaw 771. So move on. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Are there any further comments or questions regarding it? Councillor Toss?
Can't let a motion go by without a question. I'm sorry. With this, does that mean, this is a question for CEO Marquette, is this, excuse my ignorance, but this would mean, like, for example, when we moved the ATCO trailer from up Trans-Canada there to our site here in town, if we were to do that after we, or do not, if we pass this bylaw, then we wouldn't have required any of that application and process.
No, we'd still have all the permitting requirements. We're just not going to
Okay.
pay the fees.
Oh, this is just about fees. Okay.
Yeah,
I
just
misunderstood.
about the fees.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Next, correspondence, and we have one item from the Minister of Health, Josie Osborne, regarding partnering to strengthen healthcare and recruiting. And this is for information. So would anyone like to put this motion forward?
So move, Toss.
Thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second.
Second. Thank you, Councillor Michelle. And any comments?
Question. Or Mayor Honor. Do you see any, like she speaks about initiatives that we can do within the community to recruit individuals? And I don't know what specifics, but I was thinking maybe when we do that chamber brochure, that's I think a September 2025 goal, that might have a fact like a recruiting element to it. That's why you would want to move to, well, obviously it will, but maybe a health perspective one as well.
Yeah, I know I've heard of municipalities, for example, providing housing, providing incentives. There probably could be a variety of things that a council could do too.
Okay. Very much in favor of looking into that. Thank you.
Okay. And any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Carried. All right, reports. I don't have very much to report, even though it's been 3 weeks since we had our last council meeting. But I just have a couple of things. So as a result of the extended power outage on the BC Day long weekend, I learned a couple of things. So I learned that the redundancy power line from Spence's Bridge down to Lytton that replaced the diesel generators about 20 years ago or so The line was damaged in May of this year. I was not aware of that. I'm not sure how many other people were, but so we had no power line coming down. So when the power went out in the canyon, of course, that's why the extended time we were delayed. But I also learned that BC Hydro is working on it, and we're supposed to have it reconnected by September 30th. So, and I also learned that there is legislation in place for compensation, or how for no compensation for power outages. So BC Hydro is in no position to compensate anyone. Yeah, and Caroline Lamont mentioned this earlier, but it was really nice to see her at the farmers market this past Friday. I did see her engaging with a number of community people and chatting about OCP and just the village in general. And I understand that Amhani Jones, our engagement manager, as I think Caroline mentioned, is going to be set up there this coming Friday. It was just great to see the village have representation there. And I just, one other thing I just want to comment, now that I've moved back into town, I get up in the morning, I look out my window, and it is just so great to see all the activity going on private properties as well as on municipal property. So, new homes being constructed, which is great. The work, I looked down the street and there was work going ahead happening at Spitland Park. I looked over and I could see Pocket Park, the shade structure going up, and then looking up and seeing all the water and sewer work. So it is just so wonderful to see the activity that's happening in the village. And that's it for my report. Councillor Toss.
Thank you. I didn't have much to report, but I did want to give a shout out to Two Rivers and the village and all of Andy Moss's crew and Aid Kingston that put together the lovely structure at Pocket Park. It just looks gorgeous. So thank you to everybody involved with that. And also to thank staff for addressing concerns that I on council have, and I appreciate the time taken for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Yeah, it was kind of nice to have. My notes say, while scheduled events were very limited since the last council meeting, I was able to spend some time at home harvesting. I was like, oh, remember where you live, girl. I was able to attend Monday Coffee with the mayor a couple of times, and on the Mondays. The timber frame shade structure, the raising that happened on Sunday the 3rd and Monday the 4th of August, I was really happy to witness that event. It made me very happy. I don't know. I just really like that thing. This structure will be a legacy for Lytton as we rebuild our community. I dropped in briefly to the annual fish camp at the battlefield on the 4th. And that's another thing I really like to do every year. Fish camp is such a positive experience, and the annual fish harvest makes hard work easier when shared. It's just so nice to see the community come together and bring in the fish and put the fish away and have a nice meal. I was disappointed I wasn't able to attend the Kanaka Bar community celebration that happened last weekend. And I continue to work with other community volunteers to make this year's Lytton River Festival one to remember. And I look forward to having the village support the event as a sponsor and a participant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle.
Nothing to report.
Okay, and Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm going to say nothing to report.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our our open meeting, and we're going to be moving to close. And we need a motion to do that so that we can discuss items under 92B of the community charter. Thank you. And a seconder. Lightfoot. Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sassy Dorshiko.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So that concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting of August 12th. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into closed. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful night. I invite council to take a short recess while I reset the meeting to closed.